On a cold London evening, Tommy Nix strolls calmly toward a swarm of police cars, striking an officer before being quickly overpowered by reinforcements. Smirking with triumph, he kneels, places his hands behind his back, and allows himself to be arrested. The following day, a judge reviews his case and sentences him to 2 years in prison as one of the youngest offenders. While being escorted to his detention cell, an officer, furious about Tommy's crime, punches him in the face, leaving him with a black eye. The next morning, Tommy is transferred to the correctional facility, where he registers as prisoner #81019. His photo and thumbprint are taken, and he undergoes a cavity search before being asked personal questions by a truant officer. Afterward, he is escorted further into the facility, where inmates shout insults at him from their windows as he is locked in his cell. Shortly after, an alarm sounds, and officers respond, searching the building. They discover Bob, an inmate strapped to a gurney, unconscious and injected with a poisonous serum. Tommy watches from his cell as officers attempt to revive Bob. His cellmate, Harry, believes it is already too late and comments that justice has been served. Tommy's story traces back to the 2011 London riots, which saw widespread looting, arson, police deployment, and 5 deaths. Amid the chaos, a group of young men rides motorcycles to loot jewelry stores in the area. During one robbery, the store owner tries to stop Mason, but their leader, Jake, shoots the man multiple times. Despite the unintended casualty, they return to their hideout with bags of jewels. Jake hands the loot to their contact, Gabby, for safekeeping before the group flees. While heading to another safe house, riot police block the road, forcing them to abandon their vehicle and escape through narrow paths, but they are eventually caught. The next day, Tommy works at a construction site, where his co-workers discuss the riots as reported in the newspaper. Later, Tommy visits his wife, Elise, at the hospital, where she learns the baby she's carrying is a boy. Once home, he reassures Elise of his love, and they share an intimate moment. Back in the detention center, Tommy and Harry line up for breakfast, and Harry talks about the poor food, remarking that Muslims get better meals during Ramadan. Harry asks Tommy about Jake and Mason, but their conversation is cut short when impatient inmates insult Tommy. Later, in the courtyard, Harry discreetly points out Jake, Mason, and other offenders. They observe a secret drug deal where Patrick becomes enraged and tries to fight Angel Face, amusing the guards. In the showers, Angel Face reminds Harry of a private meeting and instructs him to bring his canteen. Meanwhile, Jake's gang smokes pot with a guard, Jackie Nash, who becomes euphoric. In a flashback, Jake meets Elise, a probation officer, who encourages him to take a course and turn his life around. Jake loses interest and leaves, claiming he belongs in jail. Soon after, S.A. arrives late for an appointment with Elise, who threatens to call the police. S.A. slaps her, but Jake warns him about surveillance cameras, prompting S.A. to leave. Shaken, Elise locks herself in her office. Later, watching a news report about the riots, Elise notices Jake wearing a stolen watch linked to a murder investigation. She calls Tommy to discuss their options. Walking to her car on an empty street that night, Elise tries calling Tommy again but is attacked by a masked assailant, who shatters her car window and beats her unconscious. In the detention center, Tommy approaches S.A. in the recreation room, pretending to inquire about drugs. S.A. tells him to return the next morning when he'll have more supply. Tommy later sees S.A. beat up Sicko over a cigarette. In the gym, Tommy lifts weights with Angel Face, but Patrick shows up with a shiv to attack Angel Face. Inmates overpower Patrick as a guard sounds the alarm, sending him to the infirmary. This triggers Tommy's memory of Elise's hospital visit after her assault, where she, wearing a neck brace, tells him her attackers were part of the smash and grab robbery but refuses to name them. Meanwhile, Jake, Mason, and S.A. are interrogated by Detective Boaz about the jewelry store owner's murder. Despite evidence, they deny involvement. Back at the hospital, Elise screams as she suffers a miscarriage, leaving Tommy devastated. Returning to the present, Tommy trains intensely to avenge Elise and their unborn son. Mason, meanwhile, converts to Islam, and Tommy confronts him, taunting his newfound faith until Mason's Muslim brothers intervene. Tommy tears apart a small book, wraps the pages around his hand with a sock, and attacks S.A. in his cell. S.A. insists that Jake orchestrated Elise's assault and admits he only hit her once. Enraged, Tommy smashes a chair over S.A. multiple times, leaving him bloodied and in need of medical care. In another flashback, Tommy tries to comfort Elise at home as she struggles to cope with her trauma. She reveals the assault left her unable to have children, compounding their grief. Tommy meets with his friend Kelvin, who reveals that Jake and his gang were sent to Her Majesty's Young Offender Institution in Gravesmere. Soon after, Elsie hands him the keys to their home and walks out, ending their marriage. Enraged, Tommy loses control and smashes the newly bought baby crib meant for their son. This moment pushes him to plot his revenge. At the facility, Harry grows suspicious of Tommy's behavior and demands to know why he is so determined to punish Jake and his gang. Tommy insists it's about justice. Jake calls him over, offering a cigarette and coffee, pretending to be friendly. Mocking the assault on Elsie, Jake says he did Tommy a favor. Jake taunts him further, provoking Tommy to attack him, but Angel Face stops him just in time. Jake diffuses the tension, claiming they're on good terms for now. Tommy retreats to the rec room, sitting across from Patrick while another inmate, Mike Righteous, practices rapping. Remembering the shiv he held earlier, Tommy asks Patrick to help him get weapons to kill Jake and his thugs, offering to write a letter to Patrick's girlfriend in return. In his cell, Tommy sharpens the shiv's tip and attaches it to a string. During a run in the quadrangle, Officer Jackie welcomes Tommy to their drug-dealing operation. Later. Meanwhile, Mason warns Tommy not to get involved with Jake, advising him to reconsider his choices. He also reveals he has a baby daughter, which changed his perspective. Elsewhere, in the shower room, Angel Face demands money from Harry for drugs. When Harry can't pay, Angel Face punches him repeatedly. Tommy intervenes with his shiv, but during the fight, the shiv is dropped. Angel Face picks it up but slips on the wet floor, fatally hitting his head. Harry refuses to join Tommy's plans but promises to kill Jake for assaulting Elsie. Tommy confronts Jake in his cell, accusing him of attacking Elsie and causing the loss of his child. Jake denies this, blaming Mason instead. Jake and his friend Lucky mock and beat up Tommy until Officer Jackie arrives to stop the fight. Jackie orders Tommy to be placed naked in an isolation cell. Later, Jake tells Mason about Tommy's revenge plan and threatens Mason's daughter, forcing him to follow Jake's orders. In the isolation cell, Officer Jackie taunts Tommy, using a riot shield to provoke him. Officer Cassie intervenes, treating Tommy's wounds and reporting Jackie's misconduct. Cassie escorts Tommy back to his cell, where Harry helps him rest. Mason then speaks with Tommy, explaining that Jake manipulated him and clearing his name regarding Elsie's assault. In a flashback, it is revealed that Jake was the masked attacker. In the visitors section, Jake confronts Mason's family, implying harm to his daughter if Mason doesn't eliminate Elsie. Tommy asks Harry for help starting a riot in the mess hall. During the chaos, as inmates attack Officer Jackie, Tommy kills Sicko and confronts Jake, who is armed with a wooden stick. Although Jake initially overpowers him, Tommy stabs him with the shiv but is stabbed in the eye in the process. Officers arrive and take Tommy to the hospital. Later, Mason is released, cleared of all charges. Tommy, now one-eyed, earns respect from the inmates.